Dr. Hines, good night to you. Please unmute your mic. We're starting in 2. I'm just waiting for Dr. Adams to come in.
I'm going to go through till the end because I pre-taped my program today.
Okay, thanks.
Right.
So I'm just waiting on Dr. Adams to come in, and then we start.
Wonderful.
I just called him and asked him to come in. So you got the link? So I could send it to the folks. Well, good night to all of you. How y'all doing tonight? It's been a rough week. Lots of things are happening. Lots and lots of things are happening. We have, early morning meetings. Well, I thought that early in the mornings, we go out on the we go to the seawall to do our little jog, or we go to the park and so on. But we having early morning meetings. Early morning meetings. I forgot to ring the bell because I figured that was school. So things are happening, things not regular. And you know what? When I was looking at my program, I said I needed to do my program, but I was looking for something to talk about, a caption to put there. And then I said, the masquerade. I'm going to use the masquerade because when I was thinking about the things we're going to discuss tonight, I said, this got to be a masquerade. Lo and behold, we had a masquerade indeed. We got a masquerade. But let me say good night to all of you. Thank you for being here. I'm not seeing you yet on the screen, but you're going to pop up there just now. But look, share this live. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Share this live. So Audrey and Linden and Terence and Simone and Jocelyn and Marcy and everybody, just share this live. Tell them advancing the cause is on and we're ready to talk. Poor people governor, how you doing? Good night to you. Look, this thing ain't funny. But before I start, let me send out condolences to some of our friends who've lost loved ones. We had a very tragic fire way up on the quarantine yesterday morning and we lost 4 persons, I think, or 5, a mother and 4 children, or a mother and 3 children. So very, very sad. And then we had 2 fires on the East Coast today. Look, we got to be a little more careful with what we're doing. I don't know if the one where we lost those persons, if that one if it's arson, I don't know. But look, we've got to be a little more careful with what we do. But tonight we're going to talk, and it's about the masquerade. The masquerade, lots and lots of it. And I've got two wonderful young men who are going to be joining me this evening. And they're no strangers to us, you know. And I was so pleased when both of them said they're going to join me. So I'm surrounded by two strong men. I know Jagbio doesn't like the best bone in any one of them. But you know what? One thing about us, we're strong and we can't be bought. So, operator, if you would bring my two young men onto this, onto, yes, good night. So, we have Dr. Hines. I have two doctors with me here tonight. Two doctors. And let me tell you, these are not quack doctors. Eh? These are not quack doctors. These are not doctors that you had an honorary doctorate conferred on them. These are real doctors. These are persons, these two young men, they worked for it. They went to a real university, because you got some other doctors who you don't even know which university they went to. But these doctors went to a real university. Dr. Hines, Dr. Adams, good night. Welcome to Advancing the Cause.
Good night, Coretta.
And
good night, Dr. Hines.
You can good night to my spin twin.
How y'all doing tonight? I noticed we've got quite a lot of people tuned in, and they're waiting for the three of us. Marvel and all these folks, they're well up here. Christopher and Lennox and Sharon Griffith and Loretta, they're all in and they're waiting to hear from us. You know, I was saying earlier, every week I try to put a caption. Yvonne Rodriguez from Barbados, good night to you and the Bajan crew.
That's my neighbor. That's my neighbor.
Jeez.
That's my former neighbor. I teach her. We're going to talk about education tonight. I teach her at lessons in Boston. And she was my
neighbor. You and Bernadette, everybody, good night to you. Just share the life. Eh? But like I was saying, when I was thinking about a caption to put on the program tonight, I was going around and around and around. And I said, you know what? The masquerade. I'll use the masquerade. And I sent it off on Monday night to the operator for him to prepare the flyer. Lo and behold, yesterday morning, we had a real masquerade. And I'm saying, wow. But, you know, guys, tonight we want to talk a little on what's happening in Guyana. We want to talk about education. We want to talk about all the masquerade that we saw yesterday. Yesterday, early morning school, we had 5:30 in the morning school bell ringing. And if you didn't get in by 5:30, you were locked out of the gate. I didn't know that we're still doing them things in school. What really wrong? I got turned like the principal now. What really wrong with y'all? But guys, again, it's good to have you. Dr. Hines, as an educator, when you look at what's happening in Guyana in terms of our education sector, how does this make you feel? First of all, I must say to you, I noticed this big pump and scene about textbooks and exercise books being given to students or to learners. I noticed there's this big talk about breakfast being given to learners. Your thoughts on that?
You know, Coretta, there are two responses I have to that. I mean, the response of that I'm sad at what education has become under the government for the last 30 odd years, except for a break of 5 years. These people have been in office for 30 odd years, so they have to take responsibility. You know, all of us here, including you, who is much younger than Doc and myself, but even people of your generation, our education was a colonial education. But even with a colonial education, we were able to take that education and make something of it. And I think that was nothing short of a miracle that we were able to do. Take an education that was meant to beat us down and turn that education into something that liberated us. And so therefore education is something that I don't play with. Had it not been for education, I would not have had the voice that I have. I would have been a statistic in our society, I would not have had the agency to be able to speak on behalf of people who don't have a voice. Education is there may have been other things, but education is what is it. And my aunt who raised me, she always used to say a fifth standard education, but she was determined. She said, if I had to wear one underwear, she said it more colorfully than I'm saying it here. She will ensure that I have an education. She didn't worry about all the big things and so much. She was very clear about that. And then my mother, who migrated but lived next door to Howard University, said she would go to the bus stop every day and she would watch these wonderful black boys and girls going into this place. And she dreamt one day that one of her children would go there. And she would write letters and said, you're going to go to Howard University, and she would send Jet and Ebony and so on, and you would read through about Howard. So education is extremely important. And when I see where education has gotten in our country, I feel so sad. But on the other hand, I feel very hopeful because now our country is blessed with the kind of financial resources that we can have the revolution in education that we need in Guyana. We can again be one of the most literate society in the Commonwealth. In the Commonwealth, Guyana and Barbados were way up there during the colonial period in terms of literacy and education. I feel hopeful that we now have the resources and that we could get back into government. And I don't beg for position, but if I have anything to do with the new government, I would beg whatever else they want me to do, that I have something to do with education, because I know what education means. My friends who I went to school with, sit on the bench in school, who are bright more than me, and some of them doing watchman work and all kind of story. Wow. They would bring their children and said, this man and me sit down in bench at school, and I the more bright than he. And so when I hear and I see I see myself. And I want you all to fulfill what I was not able to fulfill. And so, in a sense, people like myself, like Dr. Adams and yourself, we carry a tremendous burden. I was looking at the live, and I'm sorry to be a little bit long, but I was looking at the live a few weeks ago when you went up to the quarantine.
Lancaster, Liverpool.
Liverpool, Oxtie area, and dealing with that thing. And that you turn around and you said, back there where I grew up, and Miss Thing live here and Mr. Thing live here. And it brought tears to my eyes because I know what that means. You are to migrate because of education.
Yep.
Education. You couldn't get very far in that community. The community raised you, prepare you, but you had to migrate. And it's always so emotional to go back to see people that you went to school with.
Yep.
And I was almost moved to tears because that's my experience when I go back to my village. And I feel that there are two things that if we get right, and that we will get right, that is to get rid of poverty and to improve education. That if we beat poverty and we uplift education, then I think we will be the greatest country in the world. There is raw potential in Guyana, in the Caribbean. We have to, coming out of the experience that we've come out, and we have beaten all the odds. And education has been the thing that has lifted us up. And poverty has been the thing that has kept down our brothers and sisters. So when you talk about education, you're really starting up a hornet's nest, a whole bag, a dark flea, as we say.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Adams, your take on it, and then we'll go back to the issues I raised before that is causing a whole lot of commotion.
Hey, thanks, Coretta. Thanks, Dr. Hines. Of course, I don't think I could say it any better than Dr. Hines. But I want to start out by saying that the great Dr. Martin Luther King, his picture is right behind me here. He said, education is the great equalizer. I grew up. I know Dr. Hines grew up in Boston. I grew up in a place called Christianburg that most people have never even heard of. It's on the other side of the Demerara River, which is poverty stricken, and then later on in Alboiston, to the most poverty stricken areas in the country. And had it not been for good education, I probably would not have made my way out. It was very challenging living in those areas, and it was just because of that free education that I was privileged to have. And many like myself who were probably much smarter than I was, but they never had the opportunity and privilege to be where I am. And it's not only me, Coretta and Dr. Hine. Jagdio and all of those folks enjoyed the privilege of having a free education provided by the PNC government when it was in office during the Barnum era. So I think the younger generation, younger relative to us, of course, well, myself and Dr. Hines, I can't, relative to us, the younger generations, we've got to let them understand that we had free education from kindergarten right through university, which came from the vision of a man called LFS Barnum.
Yep.
And it was so until 1994, when the PPP came into office. And had it not been for that free education, I don't think Dr. Hines would be sitting here. I would not have been sitting here, and thousands of others. On
Mm-hmm.
the flip side of it, just think about how many thousands of other folks that came from our background who were denied that privilege when free education was taken away from the PPP. And we ought to make sure that the younger people know that when you hear the PPP talk about, well, we're gonna have free education at the University of Guyana, it's not something that they invented. People ought to know that it was there since 1994, and they're now bringing it back as a kind of a hoax to get political mileage out of it. But had it not been for, and by the way, education is the foundation. Forget about the academic aspect of it. In the United States, we we have found that education is the foundation, the number one foundation to building an economy. It's not infrastructure. Infrastructure is actually number three. So education is the highest priority in all develop. If you take Singapore, for example, China, India, their economy is built on a strong education. In Guyana, it's totally backwards, as evidenced by the way that they treated teachers and have teachers working for less than, as far as I'm concerned, minimum wages, especially compared to other islands in the Caribbean that we've always talked about. That like Grenada, for example, that the only thing that Grenada has, which is, I don't mean to be derogatory, but compared to us, their main export, I guess, is not met compared to our economy, and we cannot pay our teachers a living wage. And the thing is, when you hear the vice president says, well, I don't care, when he hears that 80 or 90% of our graduates are leaving and teachers are going to leave, he said, well, that happens all the time. I don't care. I mean, that is totally irresponsible and incompetent and don't have a clue. But education is the foundation to building any economy of any country. And it's like I said, it's the great equalizer.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I when Dr. Adams, when you spoke there, I remember one minister of education said, "Let them go. We'll train more.
Yep,
Let
yep.
them go. And that's the mentality of these people, where they feel that they can come out there and make a big show about how many teachers they're training, how many students are graduating from university, but they're not concerned about how many are leaving. And so in their mind, it's let them go. We'll train more.
But
We'll
correct, you
train
see,
more.
again, it gets back to the competence that this government is demonstrating. If I, as a senior official in the US government, said something like, I would be fired immediately, because you know why? In our performance, to get our bonuses and stuff like that, in our performance, one of the biggest criteria there is retention of staff. Retention, which means not only retention, is development and retaining staff to make it competitive. So we've got to find a way of retaining staff. If my staff is leaving every I've got just a rotating door, they just come in and leave, I would lose my job for it. But in Guyana, that's these guys, we would never become competitive with this type of a mentality. We have got to attract the best and retain the best.
Well, let's look at this one, and then you'll understand what we're saying. Um, let's look at this clip here, and we'll get to
No, no, can you
understand.
sit down? Who asked you to stand? Hello? Where you believe you're in here? No, no, I'm talking. By we gone, by. What are you telling me, by? We,
So you understand where we're at when you get this is coming from the man who says he's the president. And when you get that kind of response coming from the president, then you can understand where we are. Now,
Yeah.
yesterday, we saw this big craziness about this 5:30 meeting. Now, we've been talking about this all along. We've been talking about what is happening in education, and you just touched on it. Our teachers who can't have a kind of a livable wage. Just the other day, we had the teachers out on the streets for 75 days. Now, if you tell me if a government is serious about education, if they would want to have their educators on the streets for 75 days and our children are not engaged. Dr. Hines.
Yeah, you can't have an education system that functions to its optimum if your teachers are not given the tools to teach. They're not given the tools. Now, listen, I've seen teachers all across the Caribbean, in the United States, where I've been working for decades. But there is something about the Guyanese school teacher.
Mhm.
I wish I can put my finger in it and express it in words, but there is something about the Guyanese teacher that is special. And I'm not saying that, that quality does not exist in teachers all over the world. I'm sure it is, but I am familiar with Guyana. There is something about the Guyanese teacher. And at some point I was misguided because I thought, well, these young people were teaching. No, they're not into it. But through the strike and I've been able to reconnect with this new generation of teachers and talk to them a little bit more. And I have found out that they are perhaps even more than my generation of teachers committed, because the atrocious conditions under which they are forced to work, the conditions under which they have to study. They live in a country where the
Mhm.
government doesn't want them to study and to uplift themselves. And it's as if they have to hide to study. So here we have teachers have to hide, get away to study, and still are committed to those young people, that they put their hands in the
Mhm.
pocket to look for money that they don't earn in order to teach their children. That is something that this society has to repay those teachers. No amount of money, I have to say, can give back to teachers what they've given to our society. But at least we can begin to try. It hurts to see teachers have to go on the street for 75 days
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
ask for a living wage. A living wage. I mean, come on. You are the boss. We are giving people things to make something of themselves. And your teachers, you cannot pay them. It is the greatest crime. It is the greatest crime of our post-independence era. And our societies have committed lots of crimes. But that crime stands out. That crime stands out. You cannot have a functioning system if your teachers are not compensated. A teacher more than anybody else. Coretta, when I am at the university level, going out in the morning, I put on a shirt, I put on a pants and a gun. If you are a primary school teacher, a secondary school teacher, you can't drag on a pants and a shirt.
No way.
You can't. So quite apart from teaching, you have to present yourself properly. You can't wear the same frock every day or 2 days a week. And so therefore the tremendous sacrifices that our teachers are making, and they cannot be compensated. You are not. I see all kinds of things floating around. You know, they're doing this program and that program and this math program. I have news for them. You can do all those programs. If you don't make right by your teachers, then our education system is going over things. One has to start with. One, making right with your teachers, and two, the 50% dropout rate from our schools. You have to get those children who have dropped out mainly for economic reasons and reasons of poverty. You have to get them back in the classroom. Pay your teachers, get your school dropouts back into the school. That forms the basis of any reform of our education system. We have to commit ourselves at a minimum. Dr. Adams talked about Grenada. At a minimum, to bring our teachers' salary up to par with our Caribbean sister and brother teachers. We have to do that. You're doing two things. You're expressing confidence in your teachers, but you are preventing your teachers from migrating to go to Grenada or St. Vincent or St. And so, at a minimum, I would say, if I have anything to do with an education, first thing, I call in the union. And I said, look, we are proposing raising teacher salary up to the point of where it is. I bring the Minister of Finance to that meeting. And I say, come here and let's sit down. The Minister of Finance, the Minister of Education, the union, and say, look, we are starting by offering you to bring the teachers' wages up to this point. And we discuss it, and I'm sure the union is not going to say no to that. And then once we are finished there, then we sit down with the union and say, let's now talk about how we are going to make sure that teachers do not live in a state of insecurity evermore. And if I am education minister, we're going back to 2019. We're going back to 2019 because we have to pay those teachers all the money that is robbed them from 2019.
Yep.
And I know I get emotional a lot, but tonight I am even more emotional. Because this is partly personal for me. To this day, my teachers, wherever I meet them, whether it's in church, if I'm giving a speech and they're there, I ask them to stand up. Because without them, and I know they've not been repaid. And you see, when we talk about taking 10% of our oil resources and giving it to each Guyanese family, I want those old people who teach me. I want them to
be able to enjoy that as well.
Before they're dead. A lot of them just meet me and say, David, I want the chance to vote for you. And I said, teacher, I want the chance to make sure that you enjoy some little big money before you all move on. That's how serious I think we have to be about education.
Well, Dr. Hines, while you were talking there, I just remembered that again this year, Guyana topped the Caribbean at CSEC and at Cape overall. They topped in individual subjects as well: agricultural science, TVET, um, social, business. And this has been happening for the last, as far as I could remember, the last 15 years. Guyana has been topping. And we can only top the Caribbean because of the efforts of teachers. And I was appalled yesterday, but I had to laugh when I heard when I heard about the 5:30 meeting that was summoned. 5:30 meeting, you're summoning the PSAs, the ministers and contractors, but you couldn't summon a 5:30 meeting to deal with the teachers' issues when the teachers were out there for 75 days. You couldn't summon a 5:30 meeting with your minister of education, your minister who's performing the duties as minister of finance, or anybody else, or the union. You couldn't summon a meeting. You couldn't find, is it $12 billion, Dr. Adams? Was it
Yeah,
12 billion?
yeah,
$12 billion you couldn't find, but you're finding $60 billion now to bluff people that you're giving 200,000 out of a household. And then when you recognize that you couldn't really, the bluff didn't work, you boil down to 100,000. Now people don't even know when they're getting this monies. Now, this is saying to me that education is not priority for the PPP. It's not. You couldn't find monies to pay the teachers, but you're finding monies to plug into Gaisuko every 2 minutes.
yeah.
Dr. Hine, Dr. Adams.
Well, and you're absolutely correct. But the other thing about, I think we do not pay enough attention to even beyond math and science and arithmetic and all this kind of stuff in terms of what you gain in school, what kids gain in school. Kids are more molded by the teachers than even their parents at home. They spend more time. Think about it. You're there all day with your teachers. By the time you get home, your parents are probably at work. When they come home, they spend a couple hours with you before you go to sleep. All day there with the teachers. It's the teachers that mold kids outside of math and science. They're the ones who teach them moral values and how to get through in life. And that's a major aspect. And I could speak for myself because I had, a couple of teachers who made certain that I walked that narrow path so that I can get to where I was. Because, when I go home, my parents were not even equipped to help me with homework and do a lot of things that those teachers were able to help me with. So, and we have got to pay attention to that because, and that's where how kids are molded outside of the math and science, and it's very important. That builds somebody's character even more than just raw math and science. But getting back again to you brought up the great performance of our students at the two exams,
See,
uh,
second.
right? Now, you would have thought, and Dr. Hines and I know in any normal society, the teachers would have gotten a big pay raise, because the teachers are responsible. They should have been praised all over the place by the government. They should have gotten a big pay raise, but we got the complete opposite. Teachers got to go in the street and walk the street for 75 days, and did not even get anything in return.
In return.
No, it's an insult to tell teachers that, well, you're going to give us what, 6 or 8% of whatever that ridiculous number is, when you have most of the teachers, I saw this from the chairman. He said about 9,000 of the 14,000 teachers are making about 100,000 Guyana's dollars a month.
Yep.
You cannot even get a proper house in Georgetown to rent for
Yeah.
$100,000. But so we will not. The danger of this, and that the danger of it is that these guys who is running this current government, even though they've benefited from a good education in Guyana, they're so incompetent. They do not even understand or don't care about the value of education, because their main interest is to fill their pockets and to fill their friends and families' pockets. And I always got to come back to the numbers. Infrastructure, for example, as we know, the budget is $666 billion. You guys are making about $30 billion total in salary, a minuscule to what they make. So even if you get, and the teacher should not get anything less than 50% pay raise, 50%. And when you calculate that, it comes out to about 2 to 3% of that $666 billion. So all they've got to do is take about 3% from that $666 billion. You're still going to end up with about 650 billion. I mean, how much more do you want? It's a ridiculous number anyway. You can take about 3% out of that and give the teachers a 50% pay raise, at least bring them up to what I would call a minimum for that level of, for the value that you guys are adding to the country and its economy. And that's all it is. But the greed is there to put that money in there, and then you waste it on top of. We saw it yesterday morning, that they're even admitting that they're wasting money on these projects. They're wasting most of the money that they're giving, and even the president had to put. I don't know if he inadvertently brought up when one guy he even admitted corruption. Then one contractor had two companies bidding on the same project. And the president himself had to call him out and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? That sounds to me like a conflict, and he laughed it off. But that was just one example of what is going on. We had another engineer, a government engineer, who was supposed to be overseeing the contract, and he was bidding on the contract.
Bidding on the contract, yes.
The kind of thing that we've got, but they can't pay the teachers a minuscule amount of money. But the infrastructure is being wasted, and it's going into over 90% of certain people's pockets, over 90%. And the most valuable sector to building any economy is in education, but they really don't care.
But
sorry. If I speak a couple of things.
I know. Just hold that for me.
Yeah.
I noticed two of our viewers are saying. One is saying, Jagdio and Ali, they don't care about teachers because the majority of the teachers are Afro-Guyanese teachers, so they don't care about them. And the other viewer is saying, wait, Modi coming, Prime Minister India coming just now. Wait, you can see all the things that they will spend monies to do to welcome him. And it's the way of him coming to bring their supporters back on their side for elections, because they recognize that they're losing their supporters. And so you see, this is where their interest is. Their interest is all about being in power, holding on to power, but they don't care about the ordinary man. When we look at the conditions under which, and Dr. Hines, you mentioned it, that teachers work. We're going to show you some pictures just now. We had a beam falling down about 2 weeks ago, hitting a parent on her head, bursting her head on the west coast of Berbice, Bushlot Secondary School. A couple of days ago, the same teachers at Bushlot Secondary School decided that they're not going to work anymore because of the conditions under which they have to work. This secondary school here is Hope. This school that we're showing here, Hope Town Nursery School. Look what is happening. This is in the schoolyard, a nursery school. And they're tearing down. They tore down half of the building. They blocked up the side that they tore down. And the children are in school. You see, they put the zinc there. The children are beyond that zinc. So half of the school is torn down. And the other half, the children are crammed in that space. Nursery school. You see what's going on here? And teachers have to work under these conditions.
And how about kids? Correct, you're forgetting the kids with the umbrella in the classroom. Umbrellas.
Yes, well, I was coming to that. The teachers have to work under these conditions. And you know what is most disgusting is the fact that while the teachers are teaching, look, you got the contractors, they're cutting and bending steel and so on, noise bothering the children at the school. More than that, you got bat down, burning their nose. They got itches on their skins. Last week, I learned that the lips of the children were bursting. Asthma, people, asthma acting up. And these conditions are the conditions under which teachers have to work. But again, this is Hope Town Village. Eh? This is Hope Town Village. But we see the Minister of Education all over the place. She flourishes herself. Oh, she turning sod here, she turning sod there, she turning sod all over the place. But the existing buildings that we have, they're not doing anything to them. We got President's College. If it weren't for the strength of the students there, President's College would have been a thing of the past. We got North Rumveld Multilateral still to be completed. We got Watukade Primary. Just today I'm seeing zincs flapping on the roof. You know, we got Lodge Secondary water woes, Westminster Secondary water woes. They don't have water in this school. They don't have one part of the building with electricity woes. I went to Mahika Primary just the other day. A teacher plugged in the fan, and like 5 minutes after, the fan started not sparking, but you saw fire. And the Ministry of Education is not taking time off to monitor what is happening in these schools. And imagine you had 2 months of holidays, 2 months of holidays, and you don't have the contractors checking here and checking there to see what is happening. And so I would agree with this viewer who is saying Priya is unfit to be the Minister of Education. Dr. Adams, before you come in, let's look at this clip here.
Yep.
Let's look at this one.
But y'all submit this to me. But this information on those who are 4 months behind, the contractors, was submitted to me by your ministry, Priya Manichan. You had preview to this, Priya Manichan. And you should have said in your preview to this that the contractor is not behind.
So there you have it. Priya lying to the president, and the president found out that she was lying to him. Priya should be ashamed of herself. She should have sent her resignation in one time. Because you know what? I found out today, I don't know if it's Priya husband or who husband, but one of them husband is an engineer and he is also a contractor. So you notice what is happening? The money, that's just ciphering off the monies and keeping it there. Square pegs in round holes. That's why we can't have work done.
Yeah.
And don't talk about what is happening in the schools. You see all these grants that they're distributing. You check the departments of education. Quite a lot of the education officers, they're getting big drawbacks from these grants. You got some education officers, when there's a workshop, they're providing all the food. They get a contract to provide the food, the meals, the lunch, and the snacks and the juice. They get the contract. They have the contract to photocopy everything that has to be photocopied. Even test papers for the schools, some of the education officers, they got the contract to do it. And that is why we're having what we're having in this system. And Princess Marigold is saying, oh, the only thing Priya could do is cuss out. And I want to agree with her. But Dr. Adam, you were going to.
Besides the comedic nature of what took place that morning, because I was entertained. I am not kidding you. I was happy that it happened, because these are the kinds of things that we have been talking about in terms of the incompetence and the corrupt nature, and nobody was listening. The president himself came out and admitted what's going on here. You know what was his words? He said this is a systemic cultural problem. A systemic cultural problem. And I don't even understand. I don't even think that he knows what he said. Because, first of all, they don't like any systems. But secondly, and most importantly, doesn't the president understand who builds culture within a work environment? It comes from the top. So basically what the president did, the president admitted his own competence, because in any other country, like in the United States, he would have been fired, not the people that he was berating and insulting down at the bottom. He is one person who is always in charge and will be held accountable. But the part that I enjoy is when I look at certain ministers such as this Priya and Ejil, all the big mouth that they have, and the bravado talk when they, when they're talking and abusing other people. Last night, I could not believe that he cut them down to size. Priya stood up there, and the thing is how he was treating them. Like we all have been teachers for a little while. Especially primary school teachers. You tell kids to stand up as punishment. He tell them stand up, sit down, stand up. And then he called out Priya. He said, Priya Manichan. The man didn't even say Priya. He said, Priya Manichan. Didn't you check? Basically, didn't you check, the paraphrase? Didn't you check it before you sent it to me? But the part that made me laugh even more was when there was apparently when the engineer was saying he gave the contractor the start date document, and then now he's going to win some points from the president. He stands up and says, well, Mr. President, there was these two guys, the contractor and engineer, they've got bad blood between them. And the president said, but Mr. Ajil, is that what you get up to tell me? So basically you're running our projects on bad blood. I mean, it was so comical, but I was happy that these guys, that they were exposed to the public, to let the public see for themselves, and to let the president tell them, not only tell them about what these ministers are doing in terms of incompetence and don't care a damn, but to let the public understand that he himself has admitted to improprieties and incompetence in his government.
Look, watch the masquerade, man. Viewers, let the viewers just watch this masquerade here.
Yes. No, take the mic, because when they stand up here, I want the public to see them. There's no bluff here.
Mr. President, 2 days, I think, ago, there was a major dispute between this contractor and this engineer. There's bad blood between them, terrible bad blood, that is affecting our project management. I had a meeting with both of them, sir. I'm just saying that's
how we manage a project, by bad blood. Minister, I don't expect you to tell me, get up and tell me that. That is the government projects can be managed between bad blood, between the engineer and the contractor.
And so you notice, where is the foundation? Education is lost. That's why the minister could get up there to feel as if, he wants to cushion something.
Yes, exactly.
No critical thinking, none whatsoever, because, they didn't take time to sit down and go to school. Michael Reed, I'm happy that you're laughing, but they did not take time, so there's no critical thinking, so you just feel you could get up and tell the president wherever. And so the man had a right to embarrass him, both here and Ashley as well. And I'm saying, if we were to step back and allow the people, Dr. Hines, allow the educators to plan the programs, put the curriculum together. But rather than that, you know what we have? We have big consultants coming from England. They're coming from here, they're coming from there to tell Guyanese teachers what they must do in Guyana. And when they come, what they do, they send out a whole lot of survey forms. And when you send your information into them, they use the same information, put it in a fancy document and present it to you. And we have teachers right here who can sit and put together the curriculum. Teachers right here who can carry on workshops, who can do whatever, because they're teaching the classrooms, so they know what it is. But no, we got to thief the money, so we bring in big fancy consultant. Dr. Hines.
Coretta and Dr. Adams. Look, first of all, what is the president doing there dealing with contracts? That's the first thing. That we saw there is a contrived theater to push wool in our eyes, to show that the president cares, and the problem is with ultimately the contractors, the ministers are in between. What they don't do is, because, as you said, they're not critical thinkers, and they don't know that when you have theatrics in politics, there are unintended consequences. And the unintended consequences of that theatric is that they have exposed to the world what kind of government they're running. That you had the president, that you had ministers, that you had contractors and engineers there. And they're all in this, nobody, not Pierre Manichan, not Juan Egil, will subject themselves to be insulted by a man who is not quite as bright as them. But certainly for me, Priya, I don't know about the other gentleman, but that man is not quite as bright as Priya. And Priya would not subject herself to a dressing down by a little boy who can barely form a sentence if she was not getting some big kickback that she is prepared to give up a quarter of her dignity for a day, because that's what they're doing there. Look, our advocacy on the opposition side is biting. It's biting. From saying, all right, I'm going to go along with biometrics, to admitting that the tendering system is in shambles. Every day they're admitting something that we have been saying over and over.
Yes.
It's biting. So what they're trying to do is to say, we didn't know these things were happening, and we are going to correct it. So get that boy to go up there and sit down, and he talking little Creolese, so that we can say he's a down-to-earth man. We've got to do more than talk Creolese to be down-to-earth. You either down-to-earth or you're not down-to-earth. All right? And so they put on that theater there so that we can say, yeah, you see the president dictating them. The president is part of it. He is part of it. Because if I'm running a government and you got that kind of thieving, incompetency going on, I don't have to come in front of the glare of the cameras to fix that. You fix that off camera. So what they're doing is trying to pull wool over our eyes as if they care. They care. And that's true. The last time I know you just ring a bell at 5:30 for people was on a slave plantation. And that jackass is going to summon big people. And that big people will subject themselves to it. At 5 o'clock in the morning, they have no knowledge and understanding of our history and what symbols and images mean. And they all get a man 5:30. Do you think he will get up at 5:30 every morning? Teachers got to get up at 5 o'clock every morning to start cooking. we got watchmen and watchwomen that get up every morning at 5:30 going for 7 o'clock shift. Our people know what it is to get up at 5:30 in the morning. That jackass has no idea what it is to get up at 5 o'clock. He get up at 5:30 in the morning to make himself a fool. Tomorrow morning, this morning, I'm sure he sleep till 10 o'clock. You understand? These people are incompetent. They're foolish. There should be nowhere near to government. But I'm saying to you, my brothers and sisters, do not be fooled by that theatrics. When they're done that, they're going to laugh. Prayer man, I give you a little touch of I had to do that. Reverend, I think not, but I had to do that. And prayer, build 4 more buildings. Doc, man, we had to do the thing. Do not be fooled by that nonsense, play acting. But as with everything, unintended consequence, they play act and they expose themselves. Sisters and brothers, opposition has been saying for the last 4 years, they are admitted in a roundabout way.
Yep. But Dr. Hines, and I think you touch on it there. I think the most important thing that people need to be cognizant of, and I'm in some of these chats, and everybody is. I mean, I'm sure you're hearing, oh, I'm glad that he's finally standing up. Which is it? This here is like you said, it's a con job, it's a show, and it's coming up because elections is around the corner. Why didn't he do this 4 years ago?
4 years. Why
So
not?
and pressure every week Jack Dio gets before his press conference, the question keeps coming up because every week you're getting a new incident with some issue with a project. Last week he get up there and he waved some kind of a document saying he had the nerve to say that you see this here, we're following everything in this document. So everything that we're doing it according to our process. So everything is fine. We're catching these things because of the process. I believe they're getting frustrated with the questions and they cannot come up with answers. So they decide to put on this show to let it appear as if they've resolved these things and he's taking action to fool people, like you said. And they decided to concoct this show. But I hope that people are not fooled. But I'm glad for theatrics for them for the public to see exactly what we're telling them. But not coming from the horse's mouth to say, something. We're bad, we're incompetent, and we've been doing corrupt stuff. I'm glad that it's coming from the horse's mouth now, Doctor, that is catching their attention.
And I am so glad that we have such bright people here. Mr. Modi is coming. Mr. Modi is the prime minister of a country in which half of our population has its origins. And Mr. Modi should be given all the protocol. Go to Parliament and speak to Parliament. I have absolutely no problem with that. Mr. Modi deserves that because this country, half of the people come from a country. But by God, there were African leaders who visited this country. You mean they couldn't think to carry them to the National Assembly and to have them speak to the National Assembly? Mr. Modi is going to speak to the Indian community.
Yep.
Mr. Jesse Jackson's son had to beg and bully way.
He had to bully his way.
This community. And even then, they didn't want him to go. They go there and try to make ruction in lockup. The way you treat black leaders when they come to this country is as though black people don't deserve anything. And an Indian leader is coming and you treat the Indian leader differently. And let me say it open and clear. I want Mr. Modi to be treated with dignity. I want him to go to the National Assembly. I have no problem with him speaking to Indian people. But by God, when black leaders come here, give them the same protocol.
Now, quickly, corrected, quickly, let me, with this, the whole Mr. Modi thing, mark my word, Coretta, you're an MP, but mark my word, there will be a deal cut with Modi to bring in teachers and nurses from India. I'll be willing to pay you any money. This year will be a big part of it, to bring in teachers and nurses from India.
Well, you're saying to bring more.
Yeah, we have to bring more. No, but this year is going to be yeah, you're exactly correct. Because remember now, they're building all of these hospitals, 12 or whatever it is. We ain't got no nurses. They shut down the nursing school in Linden, for example. They shut down the Linden nursing school. And then they don't want to pay a teacher's salary, which means they have to expect that teachers are leaving. And they've already said they really don't care if teachers leave. And they've already started bringing teachers from Bangladesh. And we, those are the Asian countries. But I guarantee you, as part of this whole deal here with him coming, you watch it. We're going to have a total influx of teachers and nurses.
Now, when you look at all that happened yesterday, like I'm saying, it's a masquerade. Because if the president was serious about what he wanted to do there yesterday, then persons would have been fired left, right, and center. Contracts would have been pulled from people. I saw the PPP, as soon as they got into office, they took away contracts from Brian Tiwari, from Courtney Ben. But all these contractors who were behind, we ain't hearing nothing about the people who building the school at Bamia. We didn't see Guyanese critic at 5:30 meeting. We see Barra Jagdi at the 5:30 meeting. But you know what? Again, this whole big masquerade to show the president is a no-nonsense man. You see how we talk to them there? Big masquerade. I am saying, viewers, you have to carry this message. Don't be fooled by the nonsense. So the big 5:30 meeting, Jagdio was not present there, but then Jagdio had a meeting with Pompeo. You notice?
Yeah.
You notice?
Yep.
You notice? So that there, the big masquerade at State House is what took our attention. So everybody was there and having fun with what was happening there. And nobody was keeping sight on what was happening at the meeting with Jagdio and Pompeo. Now, what Pompeo coming back to this country to do? Pompeo ain't got no position. We coming to this country to do? What can he bring to us? But here is where these people are setting out. And if we don't be alert, then they'll catch us sleeping. We have to continue to ask for clean voters list, biometrics. Yep. We want counting at the place of polls. We want to have, there must be proper identification when voters go there to vote. We don't want ministers to come around those polling stations on elections day. And these are the things that we must continue to call for. We must continue to call for every Guyanese to be treated equally across this country. Not when you go to Essequibo, you're giving them monies, and then when you pass through Buxton, is a set of promises when you come to Buxton. And you got a particular one, Charles Ramson, who can't pronounce words, but he knows to walk around Buxton and got a whole set of young people walking behind him and a set of promises, oh, this, that, and then they can send some weeding machine to give you, and that's all. I went to Liverpool there, you know, since when they're supposed to be doing that center there, up to now, they went there, throw a whole lot of stuff on the ground, dig up the place, and it's left just like that over the last 3 years. The young people in Liverpool, Lancaster, and Manchester can't use that center. They can't use that ground to practice for sports. I've seen them, you know, during your days, it was always the October period that you used for athletic sports. Now, the Ministry of Education, they've decided that they don't want sports in October, November. They want sports in April. Now, that issue was challenged a while ago by the GTU, where they'd moved the sports to April, and then parents start making a whole lot of noise. My children got to write Common Entrance, which is the grade 6 assessment. My children got to write CSEC and CAPE. You can't do it then. So it was reverted to the November period. Now we gone back again. They moved the sports, athletic sports, what people were all accustomed to having in November, it gone to April. And what is most disgusting is that you're not going to have the primary school children participating at nationals anymore. It's only for secondary school. So with all of that, it is saying to us, education gone crazy. Education gone crazy in this country. And that is happening because we got a few people who masquerading themselves as educators who making all the decisions, the policymakers who making all the decisions, and with the exception of the people who are the practitioners. So we got to have madness. Now we're looking at math intervention. How are you going to have math intervention? It's starting in the secondary schools. It got to start in the nursery school. Nursery school, you got to start the math intervention. A whole lot of nonsense. But you know what? Plenty monies are plugged into it. You don't have monies to pay teachers, but you plug in plenty monies into this math intervention, and you expect that the teachers will now come and implement what you are doing there. And when the teachers decide, well, I ain't doing this, you who talking about it, come and do it yourself, then you hear the teachers are insubordinate and the teachers are this. They bring out a curriculum, and up to now, all of them still confused about this curriculum. Nobody understands what this curriculum is about. We got a chief education officer who was not appointed. He was selected because there was no vacancy notice put out there. No applications no one applied for that position, but he was just picked from somewhere and brought there as the chief education officer. I'm not even sure if he has the qualification for that post, but this is the chief education officer that we got there now, who could write, who the man with the most memos and circular. And every 2 minutes, oh, this circular will amend the circular that was there before, or this memo is amending a memo that was sent before. Confusion. They don't know what they don't know what they're about. But you know what? When we look at what they're doing, they're stifling one set of people. Now, we had deputy chiefs at the Ministry of Education. This man, Saddam Hussein, just appeared from wherever and jumped in front of all of those deputy chiefs. Now, we know the system. You move from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to level, Dr. Hines, you would know it. And when you get to assistant chief education officer, your expectation now is to move to deputy chief and then to chief if possible. But all those ACOs and the DCOs were left there hanging while you appointed somebody from way out. I mean, and no wonder we're having all the confusion. No wonder we're having all them fights in schools, because you can't manage it. You don't know what to do. No wonder we're having all kind of sex videos and all kind of thing with our school children. All the fights, all the this, all the that. But here what we have happening. When the CSEC results are published, you see Priya jump up and she gone and present a bouquet to this child and a bouquet to that child, which is good. But that's only the 1%. Yeah, what happened to the 99%? Or the 10%? What happened to the 90%? We don't hear anything about them. And you're talking about managing education. What happened? You set up 15,000 who wrote the grade 6 exams, and they're gone into secondary schools. And at the end of the secondary school life is only 5,000 writing CSEC. What happened to the others? Yes. You don't hear anything about them. You know, when you hear about them, when it's time to share the cash grant, we're going to look for all of them to share the cash grant. So who there, who in there, everybody name going on list. Everybody name going on a list. And after you give them the cash grant, no follow-up to find out whether they're coming to school. So some just come, put a name on their name mark on the register for 2 mornings, and then when they collect the monies, they're gone haywire again. Nobody doing anything to find out where they are, where they disappeared, and how we can help them. But Priya jumping all over the place. Every minute she on a flight, chartering a flight to go to the interior to do this, chartering a flight to go there, chartering a flight to go there. To do what? Make a big show. Same masquerade.
Mm-hmm. And Coretta, as you put it so right, masquerade come from mask. The masking.
Yes.
Because all those costumes represent a masking. All right. And so what they are doing, you are so right. They're putting on these big shows, this big carnival, as a form of masking their incompetence, their unfeelingness. It's unfeeling. They're unfeeling. These are people who are unfeeling. You can't lead people if you're unfeeling. God bless all those children who are getting 24 and 30 and 40 children. But 1% of your population is not going to develop your population.
Never.
Develop your country. It's not the 99% that are left there. They are the ones who will have to tend for your people when they go in the hospital. Those are the ones who will have to repair your roads. Those are the ones who will have to teach your children. All those with 24 subjects then going and be teachers. Then going to be nurses. They're not going and be mechanics.
Nope.
They are the elite in the society. There's a place for the elite. All 3 of us here are part of the elite. All that elite means is that you have more of an asset than the rest of the society. Mm-hmm. That is why you call us elite, right? It's not whether you eat with knife and fork or so on. It's that you have more of an asset. In terms of education, the 3 of us here got more education than the normal citizen. So we are the elites, all right? But elites alone don't build a society. Elites alone don't build a society. I go on to teach at university. teach at universities, a big engineer. You are an executive of the union. Somebody has got to teach those children in primary school. Somebody has got to teach them in secondary school. When all the 24 subject people go away to MIT and BIT and Harvard and so on, it is those who got 5 and 7 and 8 subjects who would have to teach. And by God, you have to do right by them. Your God, you have to celebrate them, but more than celebrate them, lift them, lift them, lift them up. And they're not going to be judged by how many subjects. They're going to be judged by their commitment to what they're doing. They are going to be judged by how much they put of their heart and soul into keeping an education system going. That man, Jacques Diot, said that teachers are not productive workers. They're not productive workers because they don't bring anything tangible. He's such a dunce. He's such a fascist. So not to understand that what teachers do is they mold our minds. They take what we bring to them and they flesh it out and make us the productive citizens. They make us the productive citizen. And if you're telling me that cane harvesters, cane cutters are productive, I say yes, they're productive. But I say our teachers are equally productive because that cane cutter, his children have to be taught by teachers. When that cane cutter gets sick, he got to go to the clinic. And it's our nurses who will have to nurse him. And you're telling me that he's more productive than they are? You need to get away from government. All work has dignity. Dr. Martin Luther King said that in a state that my brother here lives in Tennessee, went to Memphis, Tennessee, just before he died, and giving solidarity with sanitation workers. And he said, all labor has dignity. And if you're the president or vice president and you say some labor is more dignified than others, you are inviting discrimination into the body politic of our country, discrimination into the governance of our country, discrimination into the distribution of the vital resources of our society. I cannot live in a society like that. That is why every ounce of my energy is to remove these people from government. They're bad, they're bad, they're bad for our country. They're going to take us right back to the gates of hell. And we fought our way from the gates of hell, right through the Middle Passage, coming through 230, 240 years of enslavement, another 100 years of colonialism, and we're still here to tell the story. Coretta, you're here to tell the story. Doc, you're here to tell the story. And we have to use our bodies and our minds as a barricade against these prehistoric people, these people who belong to caves, because their thinking is the thinking of the cave. I say,
Yep. Let me say quickly, Coretta. You know, I guess that's something that works in our favor is that these guys and other ladies who run the government, they're not smart enough to understand the backlash that their actions are gonna hit them in the face with, because you see they play racial politics. But what they're doing actually, they're setting up a class system. It's not race. It's an economic class system. And the same Indian community that supports them are probably suffering the same as the black poor folk. There are many poor Indians, and I believe it's going to backlash. There's going to be a serious backlash come next election, because if you go back to the education system, it all comes back to that 1% that Dr. Hines mentioned. The 1% is at the top of the economic ladder that is getting all the money in infrastructure. They can even probably pay for extra lessons to go to school. I don't know the demographics as to where these outstanding scholars and students came from that top the Caribbean, but I'll be willing to bet you that they probably, kind of in a better position than folks such as myself, Dr. Hines, and you, who came from places where we came from. In our time, at least there was an equal playing field where we had that opportunity, regardless of where we came from. But now, because of this economic class that they're setting up, there's gonna be a serious backlash, because there are lots of their supporters, which are predominantly Indians, who are suffering just like we are. And hopefully they're gonna see a light of day and understand that it's not in their best interest.
Well, it is so disgusting. I mean, we wanted to talk so much about education, what's happening with education in this country. And we can't overemphasize the importance of an educated nation. With an educated nation, we will have less poverty, less teenage pregnancies, less joblessness. I mean, every year
Less
we
crime, less crime,
less crime.
less
Every
crime.
year we're churning out graduates. Every year. But do we have jobs for them? Even in the oil sector, our people are not being employed, even though they have the qualification. Just the other day, 65 of our people were sent home. 65 of them. Now, who will take care of those people? Who will take care of their families? And the government just throw back and relax. And all they're doing is this one brother getting 5 contracts here, the other one brother get 10 contracts, the other one brother get 6 contracts. And that's why the contracts they can't finish them on time, because one contractor holding 3 and 4 and 5 contracts. And the same men that we got to use here, got to run so. And I'm happy that it actually came out yesterday. So they can't continue to say that we are lying, because they love to say, oh, we making up stories.
Yeah.
Jaguar likes to tell us. He likes to say on his cuss out Thursday, oh, don't bad with this one, Dr. Hines. Oh, don't bad with the one Coretta. Oh, don't bad with the one Vincent Adams. It's because that they want this and they get. He likes to say that. But two things came out of that 5:30 yesterday. Or a matter of fact, 3 things. One, the incompetence of the PPP came out there yesterday, and the disrespectful nature of them. When the president will sit there to mark names of those who are there, and if you're not there, you get locked out of the gate. The disrespect, and they still feel that they still have this colonial mentality in them. That came out yesterday. Secondly, it is showing clearly that Irfan Ali has no control over Barajagdio, because he summoned a meeting and Barajagdio did not turn up at the meeting. So we're seeing actually who is the real president.
And Coretta, Bharat had the biggest project with the biggest overrun in the gas to show project.
Right? And Barajagdio got critics up under him. Critics got a place that he get how much millions for, and it can't start yet. Yeah. And so what we saw yesterday, it didn't just, when they thought that they could pull smoke screen over our faces, the backlash was on them, because it showed how incompetent they are. They can't get things done. And it shows, the other thing it showed us is that what we were saying all along about these contractors and the people who get in contract, that they're not competent, and that they're square pegs that are placed in round holes. We saw that coming out clearly yesterday. Even the ministers and the PSs are incompetent. And so we have got to be able to show this nation that we have persons who are competent to make things happen. We have persons who will work to ensure that Guyanese are once more respected across the Caribbean and further fields. Have you noticed, since the PPP came back in, the amount of drug bust?
Yeah.
The amount of police, when the PPP were there before, you had revocation of visas. It is happening again. You notice? Even PS's visas are being revoked. Police officers' visas are being revoked. Just last week, I think it was, or maybe the week before, we had the biggest clown show with the The deputy commissioner of police, Brutus dressed up in his uniform. You are being charged and you're placed in front of the court, and he dresses in his uniform. You ever hear things like that happening in the civilized countries? So it means, therefore, that education is way, 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 way down. And the other thing that we recognized yesterday is that these people are unapologetic for anything that they do. Unapologetic. They don't care how they treat ordinary people. Look, we saw them breaking down the people's homes in Peters Hall there, even though there's a court matter going on. We saw what they did to the people in Mocha. We saw what they did to the people in Buxton. We just saw what they did to the people right in Liverpool there that I went to, where they're trying to bully them to take away their farmlands and say you're building some Hope Canal. Where you building Hope Canal for black people, children going drowned? That's what you're building Hope Canal for? When you got big lands that we showed you at Auckland. Nobody is affected there, no farmlands there. But you want to come to Liverpool to build Hope Canal. So you're taking over half of all the rice lands there. Half of the people farmland you're taking over with that canal. When you get to a certain point, the people who have their houses there, they got to move. Why you want to disrupt people's lives? And when you disrupt the lives of the people, then you have nothing to give them in return. And then the Minister of Agriculture would go on national television to say it was a mistake. It was a mistake.
Yeah, mistake.
You know, it was a mistake. Engineers went out there and did the surveys. Yeah. And then you can tell when the machines go up there and the people put a hold on it, you tell them it's a mistake. Yep. It wasn't there that they were supposed to go and start grading. Now, I am waiting for the compensation for those people, because you had mango trees, bearing mango trees, tamarind trees, lime trees, you had coconut trees, you had cherry trees for those who had their farmland there, and for those who got the rice land there, all those things that they dig up are waiting to see when they can start compensating those people, because Mustafa said the people are going to be compensated. I am waiting for it. You know, they all
corrected the other part that you didn't mention there that really struck me was, and you know the details better than I do, that there was a piece of and you were in the you know, in the video. But there was a piece of land that once belonged to the people in Liverpool.
Yes.
And then the government took it and then leased it to the people on the other side.
To the people and to the folks in Blackbush. Lease Liverpool land to the folks in Blackbush.
Yeah.
You take away the people farmland from them and lease it to other farmers in Blackbush. Now, when you have to talk about these things, they want to call you a racist and inciting this. But it's a fact. If you drive this country, you're going to see it's easy for you to identify Afro-Guyanese villages and East Indian villages if you drive this country. You go down the road now, you're going to see where they got all these street lights. And in certain areas, they ain't got none. You look, when school is reopened for the new term or the new school year, you check the schools that Priya Manikchan would visit. She don't come to South Georgetown to visit schools in South Georgetown. She don't come there. But they want to talk about because we care about who yourself. You don't care about the poor people. Every minute you got West Rumvelt Primary. Every minute is a confusion there. When it's not water shortage, it's electricity woes. They can't come and fix it. The drains block up. They pump it working, this and doing, and over you have the same thing. But I have no problem with Queen's College. But you check and see what's happening at Queen's College. They ain't got no issues. No issues they ain't got there. Annandale Secondary, confusion there. We saw videos from President's College where rats running on the beds, mildew bread they're giving the children. And then you want to talk about, oh, you're moving education to another. What level you're moving education to? You killed 20 in Madia. 20 you kill in Madia. And you talk about you're moving education to what level? What level? Simple, just to take off some grills off that dorm. You couldn't take it off. 20 lives gone down the drain. And then they got the audacity to say, oh, we didn't have to give them the 5 million. That's how they value people.
Yep.
That's how they value people. Dr. Hines, I'm going to take your closing thoughts, and then we'll take from Dr. Adams. I know the time just went on us.
Yes, closing thoughts, Coretta. We have to think through education. We're moving deep into the 21st century, and we have to think through education. And I think one of the things that I'm going to throw out, and I plan to have a greater discussion in it in the months to come, and that is getting rid of homework as part of students' grades and adding an half an hour or an hour more to the school day. Because homework assumes that the children have the tools at home. They have parents at home. They have computers and all that fancy thing that we need now at home. And I think that once we put that emphasis on education, we put a lot of our children at things. First of all, some children take an hour and a half after school to get home, transportation.
Sometimes more than that.
Yes, second, some of them, when they get home, they got to go and sell at that tree to help their parents. The third, even when they don't have to do that, they have parents who themselves are not equipped to kind of help them and guide them with their schoolwork. I think we have to begin to think about phasing out homework and adding an extra 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it means. People who will do the feasibility study will tell us. So that when our children leave schools in the afternoon, they are not burdened with homework, which puts them at a disadvantage with other children who go home. They get maid, they get tutor, they get lessons, and all of that story. I think it's something we have to think about. But to get that done, you have to pay teachers more, because you're going to ask teachers to pitch in an extra half an hour, an extra hour. You have to pay teachers. So my head is going there. I am not saying that is going to end our woes. We could also consider keeping lessons, but keeping homework, but set up homework centers around the country, where children who get home in the afternoon, the parents are not there because parents left work at 4:30, 5 o'clock. They get home till 7 o'clock. The children can go to an homework center, and there are people there who supervise them. Not do the homework for them, supervise them. But those are options that I'm thinking about, because as you know, Coretta, more and more homework is playing a big role in the students' final grade. And as David Granger said, when he was coming into office, what we have is an apartheid education system. And the way we break that apartheid education system is to put systems in place so there can be equal opportunity for all of our children. At the moment, there is not equality of opportunity, so there is never going to be equality of outcome. And there's not equality of opportunity because there's not equality of condition. And so as we think about education, we have to put our minds to work. And that's why they don't like us. We don't only cuss out and beat back and talk politics. We talk policy because we think things through. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and Dr. Hines, just to add to that, we've been saying that the exams that we give to our children, we are doing a disservice to them, because when we give the exams to the children at St. Margaret's, but the same exams you're giving to the children at Parmakatoy, who don't have the textbooks, who don't have the kinds of facilities, but they have to write the same grade 6 exams. Now, I remember a couple of months ago, while we were on the streets protesting for increases in salaries, my colleagues in St. Martin, they were protesting for AC units in their classrooms. Could you imagine that? AC units in their classrooms. Now, you walk this country and you check, many of our schools don't have classrooms. They still got screens separating classrooms. Still got screens separating classrooms. But we have, and we have all this monies that we got here. How much? 135 billion, or how much went to education?
For
And we,
education? No.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes, 126 or
yeah,
135
something
billion.
in the
Yes.
start.
Yeah,
but
I
we
think it's
we
135 for
35
education and
45, yeah.
126 for health,
Yeah.
yes,
or the other way around. But you're
yet,
right.
we cannot ensure that our schools are fixed properly in this day and age. I mean, the minister God, she walking all over the place. She going to this conference, that conference, here, all over the place. But she's not bringing any of the ideas when she comes in. I mean, I've been asking this over and over. When you go to these conferences overseas, take an extra day, go and visit a school or two, see what they're doing there and bring it here, and let's have best practices, bring back best practices. But no, if she does that, it means it's less monies for them to thief.
Yeah.
So they can't do the. So they continue to have us in this kind of impoverished situation where this teacher got to strain her voice because this teacher's voice is louder than hers, and the children peeping over here, and this. In the 21st century, with all this oil monies that we have, our schools must be better.
Yeah.
Our classrooms must be better. Teachers must have. I've visited schools and I've seen teachers having projectors in their classrooms, so teachers ain't got to write with chalk no more to get throat infection. In the 21st century, we still writing with chalk and erasing board. And by the time Priya go and she install a whiteboard, they install a whiteboard at one or two school, is a big masquerade show. As if it's a favor you're doing to the teachers and to the schools. This is your obligation. Do it. You got the monies, use it to do what you're supposed to do. But no, rather than that, according to the teachers, Priya could wear a Louis Vuitton bag, while the teachers could barely strive to buy one from the Chinese store.
Yeah.
Dr. Adams.
Well, I of course I would defer, all the great plans, and as we move forward, for Guyana, I would defer all that to you exports, we're glad that the country has exports such as yourself, Coretta, and Dr. Hines. But I think, as we go there, this is the boat. To me, the boat has gone over the falls already with this government. We have got to focus on getting back into government. That's the only thing that's going to change. Because if we do not get back into government, we're going to be saying the same thing here for the next how many years to come.
I know. Mm-hmm.
And I would like for, if I have anything to do, I would like for us to brand as we go into the campaign, to brand the opposition as the education government in waiting. We need to be focusing, because the people, education is still a religion in Guyana, except for the people who run the country. People from all walks of life, they still want their kids to be well educated. They understand that. And I think we should be pushing those programs like the one that Dr. Hines talked about. But then the other one that I came through, as a matter of fact, I think education should be targeted to the country's needs when you get up to the tertiary level. For example, I was the guest speaker at the University of Guyana graduation in 2016. And I sat there and was handing out diplomas and stuff. 60% of the graduates were social scientist graduates in the developing country. Now, I have nothing against social science, but we should be targeting, I graduated from the University of Guyana in the first engineering program, the first bachelor's engineering degree program. And it was specifically targeted. It was 11 of us who were trained under the United Nations Development Program. We were specifically trained to start up the Guyana Water Authority, which is now GWI. The next program after us was trained specifically for highway engineers, because they were looking at building roads. So that's the kind of programs, like for teachers, and as the needs come by, we need to be planning when you get to the tertiary level, and even through high school, in terms of preparing kids. And when I worked for the U.S. government, we were focusing on making sure the STEM program was a big deal. to develop the country in terms of science and math and technology. So we need to be looking at what the nation needs and start targeting the kids from high school right to university and prepare them for development of the country, rather than just letting people go to school and when they graduate, there are no jobs for them. And then, you know, they just fall by the wayside.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being here with me on Advancing the Cause. But I just wanted to say to Joseph Winslow, and I'm sure it's not Joseph Winslow. I'm thinking that it's probably Saddam Hussein or maybe Priya or Andrea or someone of them making themselves a food. And they like to put on these masks. But just to inform Joseph that under the PNC, Guyana was a rising nation, or Guyana stood at the top. Burnham implemented free education. The PPP took it away and had us paying. Just in case you didn't know. Joseph Winslow, let me say to you, under the PNC, students were given free textbooks and exercise books. You remember the books with Burnham face on it? We had cloth to make your uniform because we produce cotton here and we had cotton fabric. You didn't know that, so let me educate you. And just in case you didn't know, under the PNC government, we had the children there had hot meals.
That's right.
I'm sure you didn't know that one too. Don't forget, it was Burnham who built the National Cultural Center that the PPP now use, and you go check the condition of it now. Because it was built by Burnham, they ain't doing anything to give it a facelift. The Demerara Harbor Bridge, just find out where that came from. So when y'all try to talk all kinds of foolishness, go do your homework first. Find out from Barrett Jagdeo under whose government he got the scholarship. So don't come here and type nonsense under this program. Come here and sit and learn. Don't let them fill your heads with nonsense. Under the APNO, you got the buses, you got bicycles, you got boats, you got the breakfast. So don't come here with nonsense. You ask Priya how many schools are having breakfast. Nursery schools don't get it. Ask her how many schools are having breakfast. So don't come here with your nonsense. And viewers, when you see these trench crappos, as my friend Sherrod would say, when they come, educate them. Because sometimes we don't have the time to run them. Educate them when they come on this program and they type in nonsense. The gangsters are Barrett Jagdeo. I don't have the time, but if I had the time, I'd show you the clip where Ali and Basil Williams went up the East Coast and they met Anil there. So those are the sanctimonious gangsters. Those there are the gangsters. Anyhow, folks, it was good having you here. You know, we always have these distractors coming on board, but it's Priya and them because they're here. We talk about the masquerade.
Could you tell him to tell Bad Blood Edgil hi for us?
Yes, you're right. The Edgil and Priya, who the president had to tell her, "Start. Why you sitting down? Priya, this is what you sent to me. Y'all go talk to them. Don't come here and talk nonsense." But it was good having you guys here.
Coretta, the worst crappo is them dirty French crappo and Latin crappo. The worst crappo. Even these people make we have to classify crappo. You know,
Right?
because you always know latrine crappo and the dirty drain crappo. It is worst kind of crappo. God bless Sherrod.
You know, right? So, guys, it was nice having you here. Viewers, it's always a privilege to have you here with us. You make our program what it is. I'll see you again next week for more on Advancing the Cause. But don't worry, it's all about the masquerade. Operator, I think you have one there so we can go out with that. See you next week. At the same time, be careful on the roadways. Be careful with matches and so on. And just let's live together as one people, one nation with one destiny. Not one Guyana, one people, one nation with one destiny. We'll close with this one.
Of confidence. Is there any excuse anyone would like to offer? Well, then let's part ways. And may the good Lord be with all of you.